Coming up on today's show.
And in this age of us trying to do a million things at once and rethinking, so quickly of all the steps, what happens is when we have too much of the process in our head, what happens?
The concept of, you have a task, which is a single thing that has nothing else really associated with it. Then a project is just a series of tasks.
There's a project that I'm about to embark on, and that first step, which was just simple, but it was what was kind of hanging me up on everything. And I got a little encouragement from someone to take that first step, and it was incredible what that started to unleash. So
5 ways to prepare for your organizing success. Today on Keeping You Organized. Hello, welcome to Keeping You Organized. Today we are going to have a successful show because, well, we didn't really prepare a lot for it, but we could have, we should have. But if you're going to have success with your organizing, you want to prepare for it. And we're going to bring on our most successful organizer that I can think of at the moment, and that is Linda Samuels, Oh So Organized. Linda, hi, how are you doing today? I hope you're a little more organized than I am today, but we're going to have a successful show though, aren't we?
Absolutely.
Awesome.
It's always a success when we get to talk together.
Great. Well, you had a blog post with this same kind of title on it, and we have 5 things we want to talk about in order to kind of get you prepped for success. Do you want to give a little background on this and then hit into point number 1?
Sure. So the background is, I know that people listening to the podcast are listening all over the country and the world. And I'm from the Northeast, and so I'm very influenced by the seasons, the change of seasons here. We have 4 distinct seasons. And the thing about that is that every time the seasons change, you notice nature changing, and it gives you a cue and like a little nudge that it's time that you can rethink and reset your goals. So for organizing, this is a perfect time to just re-look at what's happening and do a little bit of prep so that your organizing success can be that much stronger. One of the things I'll be talking about 5 different things, and what they'll do is they will be matching action with some mindfulness practices, and that's kind of the route forward for success.
Great. Well, I like that it's fall and it's kind of time to the change of season does help us kind of get in a new mindset. So let's go ahead and start with number 1.
Okay, so number 1 may be very familiar to a lot of people. And number 1 is, it's called do one thing, and in this age of us trying to do a million things at once and rethinking, so quickly of all the steps, what happens is when we have too much of the process in our head, what happens? We can get overwhelmed. We can start to procrastinate. We can get stuck, and we don't do one thing, we don't do anything. And so by focusing on just one thing, like that tiny little action step, the tiniest thing you can think of, it will help you to move forward, and it'll perpetuate more success. So for example, let's say your office is strewn with papers everywhere, and it's just overwhelming to step in. So just focus on one little pile. And if one little pile is too much, set a timer and just work for 5 minutes. And just that little tiny step will help you get going. Or let's say, you've got lots of clothes that you want to let go of. You've got them in bags. Just bring them to the donation center. Just that one step. Right. Or maybe it's time to call your organizer and make an appointment. That's your first step. But all these little successes will start to build and encourage more success. So you work from there.
Yeah, I remember hearing somewhere, maybe it was on one of our podcasts, we've done so many, but the concept of, you have a task, which is a single thing that has nothing else really associated with it. Then a project is just a series of tasks. So if something has more than one task, it's a project, but you still have to do things one at a time.
It's true. And again, what happens is sometimes instead of being able to separate and think of that one thing, which is actually a doable item and it doesn't stress us out, we let our minds go fast forward, and that kind of prevents us. It actually happened to me recently. There's a project that I'm about to embark on, and that first step, which was just simple, but it was what was kind of hanging me up on everything. And I got a little encouragement from someone to take that first step, and it was incredible what that started to unleash. So I've experienced it, but I've also seen this with clients, how that little action makes a difference.
Right. Okay, that's great. How about point number 2?
Okay, so number 2 is what I call open up thinking. And what this is that very often when we're in the midst of change, we want something different, but we're not really sure what that might look or feel like. So instead of being open to possibilities and new ideas and what might be what might be possible, what happens? We actually dig in and we hold on to what we know about because it feels safer and more secure. And so we're doing the exact opposite of changing. We're just kind of like holding the rails, I certainly am guilty of this, of the digging in, or, you want the change, but you don't want the change. So one of the things that really helps when you're in this situation is to develop a kind of a mindful awareness simply about your tendency to do that. So I don't know, does that sound familiar? Like, have you experienced that ever, where you kind of dig in instead of leaning towards change?
Well, yeah. I mean, I think we all want to resist some kind of change, but we also know that it's important for what we need. So, and sometimes resisting change is kind of the default, right?
Yes, that's exactly right. So just the awareness that might be your default and that might make it harder to move towards change, just being aware will make that difference. Right. So one of the things you can do is when you notice that you're, starting to grip or to hold on like a little too tightly to what is rather than moving towards what you want, just stop and just let yourself take a few deep breaths. And as you're exhaling, just notice how your body's relaxing. The process of exhaling, you're actually letting go. You're letting go of the breath. Your body's just feeling more relaxed. You visualize while you're doing that you're kind of loosening that grip. And then in that more relaxed state, you're going to be more open to being able to pursue possibilities, even hear them. Whether you're going to take action on them right away is one thing, but just being able to let them sit and accept them is a big step towards making changes that you want.
Oh, that's incredible. I love that tip. And I think it's one that I think almost everybody runs into that situation at some point, in their year or even in their week. I mean, we're kind of faced with that quite frequently. So that's a great way to do it. How about number 3?
Okay, number 3, I almost put up 2 fingers, but number 3, there we go, is say yes to now. So what that's about is what I've noticed when working with clients, very often what happens is they have a conflict and they feel pulled between the past and the present and the future. So they feel really connected. They have emotional attachments to their physical possessions that came from the past, but they also feel burdened by the stuff. So one way of kind of resolving or working with this conflict, which is pretty common, is to focus on the present. So that's where the say yes to now comes in.
Awesome.
And imagine, those maps, like if you're, let's say, in a subway or train station or even a hotel, you look at this map and you'll see a little icon on the map and it says, "You are here."
Right. Yes.
So kind of adopt that idea of this, visualize this "you are here," locator icon. And when you're trying to make decisions, put yourself in that frame of mind. We're not living in the past anymore. We're right here now. So the things that we're saying yes to, are they supporting who we are now, what we want to be doing now and today, rather than something from the past? Right. And look, we all have a past, right? That's part of the beauty of things. Right. And so while the past has created who we are, not all of the belongings that came from the past or from other times are part of what our present is. Right. So by saying yes to now, it will encourage more successful decision making.
I think you could also apply that to the future too, because maybe like you say in the project you were working on, you might have been projecting yourself way out there, and no, I'm right here at the beginning.
That's right.
I need to start now, right?
Yes, and it absolutely, it works both with the conflict that you might have with the past, really trying to figure out who are you now, and also as you move forward. And so, even something as simple as, is this thing going to be useful a month from now, 2 years from now? Or is it just something I need today, or I don't need anymore?
Right. So. Great point. Well, listen, we're going to take a quick break here. When we come back, we're going to get the other 2 points.
All right.
The 5 ways to prepare for organizing success with Linda Samuels, and we'll be right back. New solutions for your desktop from myorganize.life. Fall is a time for a change in colors, and now you can brighten up your desktop with organizing products from myorganize.life. Colorful, fresh, invigorating. Give your desktop a new look with new desktop solutions from myorganize.life. That's myorganize.life. myorganize.life. We're back now on Keeping You Organized, talking about the 5 ways to prepare for organizing success. If you were with us before the break, we had 3 of the 5. And Linda, now I think it's time to dig into number 4.
Okay, so number 4. This one is called Embrace Nixon. And Nixon, not as in the ex-president. Now, John,
yes.
Can you do an imitation for me?
I know nothing. I don't know what happened to that 18 minutes of tape. You must have been watching our Facebook show on this one, right? Because we featured the blog on that one, and yeah, the Nixon. Okay, yeah.
I did. It was so good. I had to set you up for that, but this Nixon is a different type of Nixon. Okay. It's a Dutch idea, right. And it's spelled Niksen. Yeah. And what it is, it means the act of doing nothing or being idle, and that's to do that as a way of managing stress and burnout. It's an antidote for busyness.
Right.
Now, this could involve some to practice this. It might be something like you're just hanging out, or you might just be sitting and watching the trees and the leaves blow, or maybe just listening to some music that you like, but without multitasking. Mm-hmm. Now, what's kind of interesting to me about this is even when you describe doing nothing, you're actually doing something doing nothing. So I recognize that there's a little bit of a play there with the words, but the key is really to do something without a purpose.
Right.
Meaning you're not trying to accomplish something, but you're really giving yourself a mental break.
Right. Well, I think I love things like, going out on the pontoon boat, and we're not even, there's 3 or 4 of us on there. We're not even really talking to each other. We're just, cruising around and just taking in the air and watching the birds, and that's my Nixon moment. I had to get that in there for you again.
I have to say that as you were saying that, I was imagining that and sort of and visualizing some of the times I've had this past summer on the water kayaking, and then you're paddling, and then all of a sudden you just stop and you float.
Oh yeah.
And it's just like such an act of just being and doing nothing, and it's so restorative. And I think how it relates to success is that so often when we're pursuing a goal, we become hyper-focused on that goal. Mm-hmm. And sometimes that's at the exclusion of everything else and everyone else. We can become disconnected and exhausted and frustrated. And the idea of adding some Nixon, Niksen, or intentional idleness, that can actually rejuvenate us. And then we come back to what we're doing. We return from that break. We feel more clear. We have more energy. And so I love that term. I just found out about that recently.
Well, it's like the old saying, stop and smell the roses.
There you go.
So beautiful. But do you ever take the time and just, it's only a couple minutes, seconds or minutes, whatever. But Okay, well, now we need to move on to our fifth and final, and I know from doing this, featuring this on our Facebook show,
Yeah.
this is my favorite point, so I already know.
Oh, this is your favorite. Okay. So number 5 is acknowledge uncertainty. And when we're chasing a goal, when we have something that we're trying to accomplish, we're shifting the status quo. So we're no longer staying complacent with where we are, but we are moving towards something. And as we're doing that, we're changing habits, we're changing patterns. And you know what? It can be really unsettling. It just can. We feel kind of unprotected, like we are jumping out of a plane without a parachute.
Right.
And wondering, are we going to land in one piece? Now, of course, I'm not advocating anyone to jump out of a plane without a parachute. But the reality is that if we acknowledge that we're doing something unfamiliar and different, just the mere fact of acknowledging that uncertainty and that we're trying something different, that can ease not all, but some of our stress. And just recognize that it's okay to be uncomfortable and it's okay to be unsure. This is really normal. But more than that, it's actually integral to growth and change and success.
Right. Yeah. It's like a friend told me years ago, water skiing. He says, if you don't get up on those water skis and wipe out a bunch of times, you're never going to get any good at it. And,
wow.
And it's like, I'm going, well, I don't know if I really want to, wipe out, but it's how you kind of push the limits and understand what you can do.
Right. That's right. And that success doesn't happen by just doing it correctly the first time. That's the anomaly. Right. That there is struggle involved, and right. And to expect anything less than that, I think, is unrealistic. So
great. All right. Well, we're just about to wrap up here, but we got to give you the time to tell us a little bit about what you're involved in, how people can find you, and what kind of clients you even work with.
Well, I love working with clients that want to change something. So I consider myself a facilitator of change, and I work with clients both in person, in their homes, in their offices, and virtually all over. I'm located in New York, but again, virtually I can, it opens up the field of who I can work with. Right. And best way to reach me probably is through my website, ohsoorganized.com, and I have a blog and I'm on social media, so it's pretty easy to get in touch.
Awesome. Well, Linda, once again, this has been great. I feel like this was a successful podcast, even though we maybe didn't prepare as much as we should. I think if people just really go back and soak in those 5 points there, because I think it's something that really can make your next project successful, and that's really what we want people to do.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much for having me back, John. It's always such a pleasure speaking with you.
Great. Okay, folks, there we have it. We are now successful. We're going to have that. We're going to have those 5 steps that we can take to make sure we are successful. And then to be totally successful, you have to be back for our next episode of Keeping You Organized.